Welcome to Bake to the Future. The wholesale baking industry mixes tradition and innovation to feed the world and the economy, generating some major dough while employing nearly 800,000 people in the U.S. We bring you a fresh take on the latest trends and issues impacting the baking sector through exclusive insights and conversations. Brought to you by the American Bakers Association, who will take you Bake to the Future.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Haley Blumenreich.
And I'm Katie Jewell. And today we're going Bake to the Future in a special episode of Bake to the Future talking about COVID-19. We have a special guest and also a special guest host. Our special guest host is Robb, MacKie, President and CEO of ABA. And our special guest is Bill Paterakis, who's the President and CEO of Northeast Foods, H&S Bakery, and Schmidt Baking Company, one of the largest family-owned bakeries in the United States. So thank you so much for joining us, Bill.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Now, can I ask the first question, which is, where are you joining us from today?
I'm in my office in Baltimore, Maryland.
All right. Well, we ask that because we've had some, and it's no surprise to us that you are at work at the bakery. We've had some other interesting responses of people joining us from their bedrooms and closets and bathrooms and things like that. So it's no surprise to us that you are at work, and we thank you for that. So we're going to step out of the way here for a while so you and Robb can talk.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Haley. It is really a pleasure and an honor for me to talk with you today, Bill. I think as we're all going through the coronavirus pandemic, we're all looking for examples of leadership and examples that inspire us to continue to do the good work that the industry is trying to do in terms of feeding our country. You and I have had the opportunity to talk several times as we've gone through this, and I thought your story would be very, very impactful and inspirational to the industry as we're all trying to deal with the pandemic. Bill, as a leader of the family baking company, one of the largest family baking companies in the country, trying to navigate through the coronavirus, you've been leading in a very visible way, including being out on the plant floor. I was hoping you would share why that is so important to you to be so visible and out on the plant floor.
So Robb, and before we start and I answer that question, I just wanted to take a few seconds and thank the ABA for their efforts to provide assistance to its members. Again, you all jumped in the fire with us to fight a battle in new territory that's never been seen before. Robb, thank you personally for your leadership and the fact that you were willing to work and not just hibernate and go into quarantine. Also, Katie and Haley, your daily information you provide to the bakers has been very impactful, and everybody's found great use out of it. So thank you all.
Thank you, Bill. You're incredibly kind.
So regarding, just a little brief explanation, kind of how we started with all this. As you know, we're primarily serving the Northeast region of the country. All our bakeries are in that Northeast corridor. So early on, as this virus broke out, I wanted to stay ahead of what was happening in places like Washington State on the West Coast and New York City. So we created a task force made up of myself, our HR director, our operations VP, and our food safety director. The information was changing so fast that we just felt like we needed to talk every day and meet and discuss things and formulate our plans. The CDC guidelines just didn't seem like they were enough for us to interpret and make decisions for essential factory workers. So, for me to provide the leadership in what was I think leaders have to provide leadership in crisis in a paramount, situation. And in this case, we need to ease the fears of our staff and employees. Some personal tasks I took on included making a personal video to download to all our video screens in the plants. We have that ability to download information and do videos. So everyone heard from me personally and understood our priorities. My brothers and I visited most of our plants to be seen, which became a real morale builder. We would walk through the plants and people would smile at us because they saw that the boss was there and he was willing to walk the floor with them and accept the risk as well. In the meantime, my staff was scolding me for not hibernating. But I shared with them a story and said, look, when I was growing up, all the movies I saw, the captain of the ship was the last one off the boat when it was sinking. So I did what I felt like I needed to do. Although when I visit now, I do wear a mask. But we immediately, our task force set some priorities. One was the health of the employees, meeting the community needs, and meeting our customer needs.
I think that's incredible, Bill, to just really hone it down. And I think we're all kind of going through, honing it down to what is our core mission? What are the core objectives that we have? Can you give us a little bit more sense, Bill, about what is the biggest impact has that been on Northeast Foods, H&S?
Sure. So our bread business increased dramatically as our retail shelves were almost impossible to keep bread on them. Our bun plants supplying the fast food business, dropped significantly and currently operating at 50%. As you know, only the drive-through restaurants remain open with limited menus. In the bun plants where I had the ability, I converted over to make retail clusters, and where we could, we substituted clusters for the bread shortage, and a lot of customers worked with me on that.
And I think that the company and your personal reputation in certainly the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast really helped to, if you were committing to a customer that you could deliver, that you could take care of their needs during this huge ramp up in customer buying, they probably knew that, if you made that commitment, you were going to be able to fulfill it. So that had to help, Bill, I would think.
Absolutely. We've had customers, some of our retail customers we've had for 50, 60 years, and we did everything we could to ramp up and run as many hours as we could without burning out the employees and burning out the equipment. And they were very cooperative working with us to make sure, they understood that they weren't going to get everything they wanted. I mean, they were ordering 4 or 5 times in some locations of the product that they normally order, and they knew we weren't going to fulfill that order. So we had to kind of use that extra capacity and kind of spread it out among all customers.
I gotcha. So one of the things that ABA did, along with our food industry association partners, is literally right out of the box. We knew that we were going to make sure that the food supply stayed open, stable and reliable. And even, I don't think anybody anticipated the type of volume and the hoarding, panic buying activity that we all saw for several weeks. That seems to have slackened, but we knew we had to get into that breach right away. And so we went together in a united front, the entire food industry, to the Department of Homeland Security to make sure that they triggered what's known as that critical infrastructure provision during national emergencies and natural disasters. How important has that been for your company, and what's been the reaction to your employees in the plant, Bill, knowing that they're part of that critical infrastructure for the country?
Well, without that designation as essential, I don't know how we would have convinced our employees they needed to come to work. That designation was critical, and it really did propel us into a whole mindset of we have people to feed. It's not about us; it's about what the greater good here. And as far as essential workers go, on the people side, our people commented, numerous times that they appreciated having a job. And when so many of their friends were out of work, and they banded together with a very positive attitude. We saw the best of our employees. We didn't lay off anyone in the plants, even the ones that were running at 50%. We continuously communicated in various ways that they were part of the food chain. We would send download pictures. We would download the ABA messages, media clips from the local media. Anywhere we had gotten some marketing, we would feed that to our employees so that they would understand what they were doing. They were serving kitchens, feeding thousands of kids that lost their ability to be fed at school. In Baltimore especially, many of these kids are dependent on the school meals to survive. But we held a banner up among ourselves and said, called "Let's Feed America," and it kind of became a battle cry among our employees, and they stepped up to the challenge.
That's absolutely incredible, Bill. It sounds like you as the leader of the company really delivered that message. But it's just terrific to see that the employees themselves really picked up on that and embraced, again, a very simple but profound message about feeding the country, feeding America. And I think we're seeing that in plants all over the country, but I think nowhere probably as strong as we're seeing it in your plants. And again, I think that's your leadership by example. And I think we go back when you said one of your priorities, your top priority was to protect your employees. When we've talked about that a couple of times, and I've just been amazed how you've stepped in and that has become paramount and has directed all of your decisions. But I think others could really learn about what was your mindset behind the steps that you took. Walk us through a little bit, what are the steps that you took to make sure that your employees were protected and safe and healthy and able to continue to come to work and feed the country?
So when the outbreak started to ramp up, and I wanted to stay ahead of it, but I had a hard time accepting what the experts were saying, that it could only spread by touching your face or sneezing in your face. It just didn't seem to make sense to me. It defied logic that it could spread as fast as it did. So, obviously we started with the CDC guidelines, the sanitation guidelines. We actually hired extra people, and all they did was continually sanitize the areas people were working. We didn't wait for at the time, masks weren't even recommended, but we ordered masks for all our employees, and this goes back 3 to 4 weeks ago. And today, almost all of our employees and drivers have masks to wear. We found local people willing to make washable masks, volunteer groups, and more recently, they're coming in at a lot more ease. We start about 2.5 weeks ago. We start taking temperature readings, and this is before it became popular. A little bit of resistance, but everybody saw the greater good in this. We were trying to protect them. This really wasn't that popular with my staff, they thought, and our legal advisors. But I just put my foot down and said, we have to do this to protect our employees. Times like this, you have to take bold steps. And so we've been taking temperatures for a couple weeks now. And it's just one more layer of protection that employees feel like they're gain some confidence in, that they're coming into a safe workplace. Some other things we were able to do is staggered our work hours, so we prevent people from congregating in locker rooms and cafeterias. Where we had lines where people were really close together, working close together, we put plexiglass shields up between them. Some employees asked for masks. We couldn't provide, not masks, but shields, face shields. We weren't able to provide every employee a face shield, but where we could, we provided goggles or safety glasses. What we're doing right now is just keeping a log of people across the company that are, and all the status of everybody that's out sick, everybody that's positive, everybody that returns. And it was important for us to keep kind of account on where we are and what our abilities to schedule production, especially up in the New Jersey area. I think I need a baseball scorecard to keep track of everybody. We also keep a log of all our strategies and our actions, which one day will be converted into a manual so that we could refer to God forbid this ever happened again.
I think that's smart, Bill. Always important to take the lessons away and prepare for the next time. Again, I just applaud you and your family for making sure that the employees first and before anything else. And you shared this with me a number of times. That was the number one goal, is that the employees had to not only be safe but feel safe. And I think the morale that you've talked about and the enthusiasm and the sense of purpose that your team has is a direct result of that. I also want to shift a little bit, Bill, because you and your family have always had this incredible desire to serve the greater Baltimore community. In particular, I think you're very well known and recognized for the great work that you do for the Ronald McDonald House Charities in the Mid-Atlantic area. As somebody that lives in this area and sees that work up close and personal, it's something that, I'm very proud of the work that you do and the fact that, I get to be a small part of this industry that's doing that kind of good work. But you've also been very involved in other activities, Alzheimer's research, food allergy awareness, and things like that. Even though business has been really tough during the coronavirus situation, your family has just continued, and I would say, based on the reports that I've seen, have stepped up your activity and outreach to the community. You talked about making sure that school kids have meals in Baltimore. Would you share with us why is that so important to you and your family that you continue to meet the needs of the people in the community that you serve?
Sure. So, especially in the Baltimore area, but not limited to Baltimore, we're very focused. We have 6 bakeries in the Baltimore region. Our family was born here, raised here, and 98% of the family still lives in Baltimore, with the next gen coming up into the business. So my dad instilled in us a give back attitude and example to support our communities. So, we saw what was happening in the city, and when schools shut down and the elderly had no way to get food, we reached out to many of the kitchens and said, okay, what can we do to help you? We'll provide, obviously we can provide bread wherever it's needed. Sometimes they use our bread to make meals for sandwiches. Often it's a whole loaf of bread that's part of a care package given out. This past Sunday, in just one location, there were 900 cars lined up serving 1,400 families a loaf of bread in this one location, and we probably have 25 to 30 locations that we're serving right now. We serve a lot of the Meals for Wheels, all of the product going out to the elderly who can't go out of their house. We provide all the bread for them as well. We have one location that serves 6,000 to 8,000 sandwiches a day.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's, obviously helping others is gratifying, and we all my brothers and I stepped up in everywhere we could. And you know what? This is what our employees, needed to hear. And without them, we could not be providing these services. So it inspired them to look, past their fears and look at the greater good and be a part of something beyond themselves. One of the other things we did was to, it's important, as we were back into the operations, as we were sanitizing the bakeries, we signed off on everything we did so that there was a log of everything when it got sanitized. And, people were very cooperative to work with us with this, so that it was important to show we had a process in place to protect our employees. The other thing I would add is it's important to consider ways to thank your employees. Some have done this through financial means. Others have options include providing, lunches during the pandemic, adding on PTO days, which may be used, to kind of replace the days they were sick or quarantined. There's different ways to show that appreciation, and I highly recommend everybody does that.
Bill, there was a post early on, probably 3 weeks ago, and I think it was Ryan who posted it, and it was just a simple. The lunches that you were making, it was a brown bag lunch, but there was a handwritten note from you to each employee that had that lunch. I just thought that was brilliant because it was obviously very heartfelt. It was not, it was something that really truly came from your heart and was very important to you. Can you talk about what inspired you to do that handwritten note to all of your employees?
Because, I just think as owners, as leaders, as senior management, it's important that you show your employees that you understand what they're going through. You need to empathize the fact that they're leaving their families not knowing what they're walking out to, and they're putting aside their personal fears and anxieties and coming to work, and you just need to recognize that. It's interesting. And even in the community, we came last week. In the morning, a lot of us came to work, and outside on our sidewalk, somebody had taken chalk and put a big smiley face and said, "From the community, thank you, H&S Bakery."
Wow!
So that inspired a lot of our employees. They walked to work and saw that somebody took the time to do that. Really kind of continues that motivation, which is important. That it's not a one-time thing that you motivate your people. It's ongoing, continuous communication.
Well, and it's part of your culture at H&S, and again, I'm fortunate, to live and work in the community, so I get to see it probably more than other folks in the industry. It's just part of that Paterakis, that H&S culture, and again, y'all are just so much to be applauded for that. Again, that outreach and the connection and serving the community. I want to switch a little bit as I share with you, Bill. We had a lot of bakers, and these are strong, iconic leaders in the industry. They're all trying to do the right thing. Many of them look to you as setting an example, through your quiet, humble leadership. I'm hoping that you might be willing to share and some of your guidance to some of these other leaders in the baking industry that may be struggling right now. Any thoughts you've got in terms of how they should be thinking about and serving their employees and their communities?
So let me first say that operationally, if you're in a situation where you are feeding retail shelves and having trouble to meet orders, what we did was to maximize our capacities. We stopped producing most of our varieties and just ran a few items. And, eliminating all those changeover times allowed us to increase our capacity by 10 to 15%. The customers were happy to have volume versus variety. So operationally, that was an important step for us. The most important thing is communicate often. Let people know the role they're playing to feed America. Explain the CDC changing guidelines and how they impact their personal work life. Of course, that was a moving target. And we met with our task force every day to reevaluate the situation and recommunicate to our employees. And, I've mentioned it before, but to be seen by staff and employees is a big morale builder. And, early on, the guidelines we interpreted it, or that if you had a positive case of virus, that we had to shut down and go through this huge sanitation exercise. And we felt like as the days passed and every day became a new scenario, that it was a little bit of a misinterpretation. We continually sanitize, we record it. We get ahead with our state health departments. We call them and let them know everything we're doing. So when a positive is reported, they respond with a phone call and not a visit. And, in the several cases we've had up in our New Jersey plant, we've not shut down more than 30 minutes to an hour, and that was more to communicate than it was to sanitize. And I think you touched on this already, Rob, but what we used to call the buddy bakers, calling each other and sharing what you're experiencing, sharing the best practices. I think that's probably the most important thing. I shared my experiences with probably a dozen different bakers, and we kicked around ideas, and I thought that was very helpful to help strategize what we wanted to do. But at the end of the day, Rob, the main thing I learned is that bread's not so bad.
No, it's sustaining and nourishing us through this time. And while I think sometimes as a country we sort of stray and wander away from it, it's always amazing to me that at these times of high stress challenges that as a country we return to bread. Bill, I just want to thank you. I've been absolutely amazed at the amount of sharing. And this has always been an industry that really likes to get together and share information and best practices and just sort of be together. And I really appreciate, because I think we're seeing that more and more. We're doing weekly webinars, we're doing other phone calls and a whole bunch of other activities. And the folks that are willing to just step up and share is absolutely incredible. And I think that's how we're getting through this. People are trying different things. They're strategizing. They're sharing what works and what doesn't work. I just want to thank you, Bill, for sharing your story, for sharing what you're doing. I think that you will inspire other folks in the industry to sort of keep on, keep their employees engaged and motivated. So, Bill, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your story.
I'm happy to do that. Happy to be a part of this industry.
Thank you so much, Bill, for joining us on the show today. If you're interested, dear audience, hearing other episodes of Bake to the Future, you can hear them at baketothefuture.org. You can also go there and leave messages that might even get played on the show.
And don't forget to subscribe to Bake to the Future wherever you listen to podcasts so that the latest episode will be there when you go in to listen.
And thank you again, Bill, for joining us today. I know that you are very, very busy, so we do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Bake to the Future is brought to you by the American Bakers Association in partnership with Human Factor. To hear upcoming and past episodes, go to baketothefuture.org. Bake to the Future is produced by Haley Blumenreich. Audio engineer is Blake Althen. And A Slice of the Action is written by the American Bakers Association's Government Relations team.